Okay, well, let's get this show on the road. Welcome, everyone. Really appreciate you being here. We're excited today to have this conversation on what digital first engineering firms are doing differently. I'm Ron Perkins, and I'm going to be guiding the conversation. You're going to hear directly from engineering leaders who have lived through the pain points many of you face: miscommunication, cost delays, fragmented workflows, and the challenge of keeping everyone aligned. And you'll hear what's actually working when it comes to modernizing project delivery. Think of this as a chance to learn from your peers in the industry who are a few steps ahead on that digital first journey. First, a couple of housekeeping things. You'll be muted, but you can submit questions anytime in the Q&A panel. We'll address them at the end of the session. This webinar is being recorded, and you'll get the link afterward. And keep an eye out for a few polls so you can weigh in on today's discussion. All right, so let me start by introducing our esteemed panelists. All right, so first we have Mike Turba, Senior Associate and CTO at MJ Engineering. Mike's been leading MJ's efforts to rethink project delivery and embrace digital workflows. Next, we have Mike Pianka, Associate and Director of Software Development at MJ Engineering. Mike brings the technical leadership side, building interoperability and enabling digital transformation for systems and software perspective. And then finally, Drew Dragoo from HDR. He's Associate and Construction Services Manager in the Kansas and Missouri region. Drew represents one of the world's leading design and engineering firms, bringing experience on how global practice approaches digital maturity and client collaboration. So together, we're going to share the big picture strategies and practical steps that have really helped their teams reduce work, align field and office staff, and set themselves up for really future technologies. So next slide. So we'll start, let's ground ourselves, right? Let's first talk about what's facing the industry today and the challenge that people are having across with miscommunication, between offices and teams, and costly delays and budget overruns and data locked away in silos and scattered across PDFs and legacy systems, and compliance risks that are all associated with these activities, and knowing which version of the document to use and all these other kind of things. Uh, let's also recognize, though, that none of these issues exist because of the lack of effort. There's a lot of effort around these organizing these practices today, and the problem really is that our workflows and the tools don't often communicate, effectively. So the people in the departments can be siloed, and one another on how they operate day to day can further supporting disconnecting workflows. So why don't we kick this off with kind of level set? I'm going to ask you guys, let's talk about digital versus digital first thought processes, right? I just want to get a quick take on what you feel the difference is for that. Drew, let me start with you.
Yeah, so I guess digitized versus digital first. I think what gets me most excited about it is seeing how we can utilize the information we're gathering today for the future. So just having that knowledge to be able to share with the future generations.
Yeah. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. Mike, I want to ask you, where do you start from the owner's perspective, with plans or profiles or model or a twin? I mean, do you set a goal for the future, or how do you even start down this road when you're talking with a client?
Yeah, on our end, what we'll do is try to prove the value to our end clients of working with these digital models. So a lot of times your traditional project deliverables will just be those kind of paper plans and profiles. Meanwhile, on the back end, we'll start existing survey by capturing rich 3D data, building a rich existing conditions model, and then that project will be designed in 3D And, with the right contractor, that same design model can actually be used to construct a project. So just kind of proving out the workflow of the project and showing the benefits that come from that workflow with less transcription errors and things like that.
Yeah, do you have a sense for like what was most pressing at MJ before you really started to lean in so heavily on this digital shift? Um, I just wonder if it's, whether it was not best practices in the field or disconnected data, or was there a triggering event that kind of really spiked this effort within your firm?
Really, the size of projects, the larger a project is, the more team members you have working on it, and how do you keep everyone working on a project up to date with the latest information and the clearest information. So that was probably one of our biggest pushes there.
Communication, right? And as I mentioned, things like version control and other things, it's like, right, who's working off of the most current document, right? And in the model, in the space where it's supposed to be. Okay, next slide. Um, I'll just talk about this because this is kind of the foundation of where everything kind of has come from. And in some firms, quite frankly, some agencies even, there's still a lot of paper practices that are dependent upon. But there is a real distinction between digitized and, the difference between that and digital first. A lot of firms have replaced paper with PDFs or, Excel spreadsheets and CAD or even BIM, and but yet keeping them still maybe in separate data silos, even if it's in the cloud. That's digitization, though. That is the first step to kind of move into this direction to make sure that your firm's properly positioned to leverage these data sets in the future, right? And it is, as I said, it's an important step for the digital foundation, whatever you want to call it. But it really still doesn't solve that misalignment and the delays, which you were just alluding to. So it's great. I got a great folder tree. I've got everything's in the cloud and all that, but I'm still not connecting systems and silos and people and departments. Next slide, please. I wanted to kind of highlight a little bit of the work here that MJ has been doing. And I mean, in this digital first is different, right? It's the designing workflows of connection from the start, real-time data, interoperable systems, a single source of truth. This is really what actually prevents rework and sets the stage for future technologies that we're all talking about today, like AI and analytics. So, Mike Pianka, let me ask you, in your role as a software leader, how did MJ really kind of take that leap into the digital first world and with a more interoperable workflow with the data exchanges and then I do want to hear how did that lead you to MJ4D?
Yeah, sure. So definitely the evolution, like the data we're seeing here in the screen capture, the way even sites are surveyed has really evolved in the past, 10 and 15 years, from moving away from totally relying on boots on the ground survey and instead relying on reality capture data sets to capture that information, immersively and efficiently. So, with the capture of those data sets, between different software vendors, different hardware vendors, really creating MJ4D was a step in unifying that information. So whether scans were collected, with a vehicle, with a UAV, how do we consolidate that into a single view where you have all those data sets along with other traditional data sets that are just part of the project, your GIS files, your existing CAD records, even your existing, PDFs and other documents. So, kind of to your point earlier about, digitized versus digital first, it's great having all those digital data sets, but kind of viewing them in a more unified way was really the motivation for, MJ4D. And I think just kind of a core idea behind moving towards digital first delivery on projects.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I had a different question I was going to ask too. It wasn't something we had talked about, but this image, GIS referenced imagery imported to create plans. I know you guys are fully aware, this relationship between Esri and Autodesk and what they're trying to do, right, to bridge the gap between CAD and BIM and design and GIS. How does this help you really uh, have a better type of deliverable to your client, and how does that kind of set them up to, I mean, we're involved with engineering, design, and construction. They've got to think about forever, right? Managing those
Mhm.
assets in that environment. How does MJ4D and the services you provide, how's that really help them get set up with that GIS referenced imagery data?
Yeah, having really as far as records on a project, after construction's completed and like you said, it moves from construction to O&M and asset maintenance. Having that data in GIS is a great first start, but then having it in something like MJ4D or another digital twin viewer where in GIS it's lines, it's points, it's documents reference those points. Having that spatially located and referenced on top of real 360 camera photos of the site, real 3D scans of the site, really just gives you a good immersive platform for those asset owners going forward. So the GIS data is at their fingertips, but is also integrated. It's not just a flat base map around it. It's the real 3D data in context and environment.
Mm. So this has definitely kind of shaped the ultimate deliverable that you're providing to your client, right? These types of services and connecting all this information together. Drew, I'd like to ask you, because I know HDR does a lot of these advanced technologies, obviously, as well. Do you see that agencies, whether local or state agencies, are really pushing more for you to leverage these types of tools because they want a different deliverable? Do you feel like it's even maybe a little bit more the other way around? You're having to drive that because you do leverage these tools because you want your own firm to be more efficient. The better deliverables is obviously it's the icing on the cake, but what's your thoughts around that?
It's kind of both ways. I mean, the expectations for us to deliver and get reports out to clients more timely is kind of where that digital first is getting driven. So having that collaboration from the design team to the construction team to the maintenance team, having those files in a way that can be utilized, so you can kind of visualize it from both the consultant pushing it as well as an owner pushing it because they want to integrate those tools so that way they can better manage the life cycle and assets of their projects for the future. And then having these tools allows that capability to be able to sort out the information and have it viewable in real time as the data is inputted and collected.
Yeah. Yeah, great point. I mean, Mike Katerba, I was going to ask you, what helps leadership buy in once they see the difference between PDFs and these kind of living, breathing systems? Is there like an aha moment you think that when you're, let me ask that question a little bit differently. Internally at MJ, as you're looking for resources to invest in these types of programs, right? And then, of course, externally with your clients. Uh, what do you feel? Is there anything that stands out as like what creates that buy-in
I would say
that
the
you
biggest thing is when you show how data can be organized, spatially, and how easy it is to retrieve data that was, once took, forever to find in, traditional systems, even in traditional digital systems, and how intuitive it can be for any staff member of any, ability level to use these same systems to find the data they're looking for. In some respect, once you show and prove that, it kind of sells itself. But then also providing training to those clients with how to keep the system going, how to write the right language into RFPs so you get final deliverables that can be used within these systems that are set up. So it's kind of a being that ongoing resource for our clients to maintain the system and show them how to use it themselves, I think is the what really helps sell it.
Yeah, excellent. That's a great point. All right, so we go from digitized to digital first to next slide is to GIS and AI enable, right? So we've gone through digitized, connected, digital first, and AI ready. We've evolved from managing paper and PDFs to these connected systems and using APIs and other data transfers. The next leap really is transforming that data into intelligence, and of course, that's what a lot of hype and promise about AI is really kind of built on. By integrating AI into asset management, we can really move from reactive reporting to predictive and prescriptive decision making, And that's an important thing that everything you've talked about thus far is, again, it's foundational because you've got to have good data, good digital content in there to query in the first place. So you're really helping owners act before a problem occurs. And that shift it's got lasting value. It's breaking down silos, it's elevating project quality, it's empowering the engineers and the agencies to build smarter and more resilient infrastructure. So, what question I have though is, let me start again with MJ. Either one of you guys. Many firms still struggle with disconnected data between design, construction, and asset management. How do you see AI helping to break those silos and create real digital continuity for the owners? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can take that. So yeah, I think in a lot of those cases, it's really diving into any of this, digital transformation. You're probably not going to go from 0 to 60. So a lot of agencies that I would say are more progressive are in that digitized to, they have a lot of digital records, but kind of organization and cohesion across projects and across, particularly for facility owners where many projects happen at the facility over years. I really think the move to GIS for a lot of them is where, even pretty forward thinking ones find themselves now. Just using GIS as a means to organize and track the records and documents from that work over time. In addition to actually maintaining, for example, infrastructure layers, their underground utility lines, et cetera, that can sort of live and breathe as projects evolve and as new data comes in and as, features are taking out through other projects. So going beyond that, kind of the next steps are, all right, once an agency is doing that well, how do we leverage AI to, really sift through this information and maybe help people with organizing it? So that's happening now, and a big part of that is authoring good metadata on those GIS layers. Just because having a good date on the layer of when the features were added and how accurate it is and when it was collected, that's really going to empower the AI to help you more. So that's a big part of it going forward is not just having these digital documents, but having metadata about them that the AI can read and understand, aside from the document content itself, just to help organizationally in the system.
Yeah,
And that,
might I add that on that, Mike? So, like the way we define our different form fields when we're collecting the data, and how we set the expectations for the nomenclature, the line items, or the asset schedule of values, whatever however you define those terms. But that allows us to better predict the projects. How do we set the project up allows for AI to be utilized in the future to help generate estimates for cost of, hey, I have this much square footage or this much quantity, and what's the average cost based off all the projects that we've done over the last 3, 4, 5 years. It's going to allow that AI integration to help with those engineering estimates and so on and so forth.
yeah, I love that feedback. And I probably should have said at the beginning, but one of the reasons why we have engineering consultants on this talking about these topics instead of agencies, which we work with many, many, many agencies, which we have those ongoing conversations as well. But you all are exposed to these across different clients, different owners, different agencies. And that's what I think it's taking, right? Is somebody's got to become subject matter experts on these topics, some through trial and error, right? And others just through best practices and what you design. And that's, you both kind of make it definitely sound like, okay, what you've done to help yourselves get to where you are, to help your clients get to where you are. And now you're already positioning yourself to be better solution providers moving forward so that they can enable, AI applications and predictive analytics and all those kind of things. So, um, anyway, great. So that might have been my cue. Let's move forward. We've got a poll. We got 30 seconds, if you don't mind, real quickly. Give us an answer. Tell us a little bit about where you're at in this world, and we'll wait to get your answers. Okay, let's call it. I don't know, Stephanie, do you have immediate results there? Some connected workflows, digitized but silent. Paper and PDF, still there, right? And fully digital first. That's good. Somebody feels confident that that's where they are. So that's great. And yeah, I think that's the whole point is it's a journey, right? It's no doubt it's a journey and everybody's at a different place on that journey. So let's go quickly to the next slide. Um, yeah, I really don't want to run out of time because we've got some really good stuff to talk about. So into the heart of today's session is real world insights from the field where you guys spend a lot of your time. We've talked about the pain points. We've talked about the shift in mindset. But now, let's look at this as like best practice and how can you talk a little bit about, Drew, let me start with you. I know you, I've been working with you about your concept on this best of breed stack, right? And you're trying to develop some standards that could be standardized across all of HDR, and you've got 1,000+ people in the field. Um, Tell us a little bit about that journey. What would have been your highlights and maybe lowlights in that effort?
Yeah, I think the highlights are we're doing it. We're doing it successfully here in our region. Um, the lowlights is how to convey that message, but I think we're getting to that point now that we're ready to set expectations for the team leads, the requirements, setting the goal of we're going digital first on everything. We're not doing just PDFs and Word documents or doing some forms of digital first. We're going to adapt those changes. So it's a matter of training those team leads and then transferring those skills to staff, especially as we hire staff. The young staff tend to embrace it very, very well. Not saying that the older staff don't embrace stuff, and then just building that succession plan, building that transition, helping the clients understand the importance of this is where we're going. This is what we're doing with your data moving forward.
Mm, great. Yeah, and again, I think back to MJ. I'm still what you've done with MJ4D is so intriguing to me, and I'm just curious, the thinking through that, how that impacts your digital project delivery, right? What was there a tipping point when you realized that you needed something even beyond all of these other tools, including you guys use our software, but was there a tipping point that you recall where you felt like there's a better way for us to be able to relay this data
It
with our
was
client?
really, the need to enhance our existing deliverables. So you can only convey so much information in a 2D plan set. But when you can also deliver, that digital twin on top of it, it helps explain, complex things in a mapping file. And, a set of steep contours. Is it really that steep? Well, yes. Look at that hill. Or does that water line really run through a sewer manhole? Well, here's the photo we took inside the manhole. It actually does. So, the really kind of the only way, or to really enhance our existing plans with that data was a big push.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, and I definitely see the value add there for everybody. Stephanie, next slide. And let me stick with you guys just for a brief moment, because you shared this. I think it was a case study or presentation you'd done about this one particular project, and I love this because these are tasks that I'm hearing more and more cities are doing all over the place. Right, they're doing asset inventory and hiring firms like yours to be able to gather this, but did you feel like this particular project helped you in a number of ways, including like establish those first initial steps on how do you start to get your own people to become more familiar with these digital practices and whatnot?
Yeah, this was one of our earliest projects where we really injected AI into the workflow and also really went digital first from the start. So before that, a lot of way to tackle this project would be a lot of boots on the ground with GPS units. But obviously, being a roadway traffic sign inventory, there's scalability concerns with that. There's safety concerns with that. So just in brief on this project, we mobile mapped all the streets of interest. From that mobile mapping data, we had people set up at their desks to actually do the traffic sign inventory from a desk environment, and they were starting with a basically short list of detected signs that had been come from an AI computer vision model that we had ran on the mobile mapping imagery to basically have a first cut of the signage, so that the task was mainly review and classification, not actually having to virtually drive through all the images and click on the signs. So yeah, overall, this was just a really good, I think, capstone project for us, just kind of putting to practice those technologies. And overall, it actually resulted, it's obviously fun and interesting to play with these things, but it also brought an efficiency, both in terms of time and cost of the project, that was realized over the traditional boots in the ground method of just doing it, with GPS, enabled tablets.
Yeah, so I would assume a little lower risk type of project to try out some new stuff on, but then a real big reward on the end, right? After you've gone through this and realized just how much better your final deliverable could be to your client.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, next slide, Steph. We've talked a lot about best of breed. We've talked about data exchanges and this type of stuff. And this is really, I think, the approach that most people are taking. There are too many tools, too much hardware, too much software. You've got to look at what's right for your organization and right for the types of projects that you pursue. But you guys at MJ, you made a decision to keep MJ4D data agnostic. And I'm sure that's designed to help you just integrate with whatever GIS, pull all that together. Was it anything above that, or just making sure you're open to integrate and be interoperable with whatever's out there?
Yeah, exactly. Just with, like we said, there's a lot of, as agencies move towards these digital first methods, there's a lot of different software out there that does what it does well. There's lots of different data formats out there. So once you have a lot of this digital content, I think really kind of either linking existing software together through APIs when possible is important, and also just trying to be open to different data formats, to not have silos where, due to like a file incompatibility, you can't incorporate particular data into the system.
Yeah. Once we go to the next slide, I'll ask Drew this next question while we're doing that. Best of breed across capture hardware and software is real. And I know from experience what HDR is doing, and no one vendor, including us, we can't do it all. And so Drew, I'm curious, maybe you could talk just a little bit about,
Yeah.
this, how you're helping to take this into a field with so many people.
Yeah, so having the capability to capture it in real time, I mean, it makes it more efficient. It makes it more efficient when we're reviewing reports. You're looking at the design versus what's been constructed, verifying that things are getting placed where they are. So it speeds things up.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next slide. The cultural and organizational change, I think this is a real deal too, right? It's just we've heard a lot about change management. We've talked a lot about data silos, department silos, people silos, that kind of stuff. We've already kind of touched on leadership buy-in. I really like what you guys said previously. Any other advice here that would help people kind of get started? Where they get going?
No, I think you pretty well hit the key takeaways.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've already talked about that. So good. Let's zoom on because we're at time. But so here's the gist of what we've been talking about with you guys in prep for this webinar, and with others as we're kind of going through this, the handbook, right? The playbook, the digital first, defining the use cases. You've talked about that, avoiding any kind of sprawl, right? Standardizing your toolkits and your workflows, replacing the file handoffs, with shared systems. I'll zoom all the way to the bottom. The plan for change management. I mean, I can tell you that connecting technologies is not really ultimately the hardest part here. Would you all agree with that? I mean, I think when you're trying to scale these things across your organization and your customers' organizations, it's how do you help them get going? Is there anything that kind of, in all of these steps, is there anything that kind of gets the momentum really going in these efforts?
I think
Go
just
ahead.
having a clear use case, and if you are going to introduce a technology into a project, not doing too much at once. Like if a client is still on paper, don't say, oh, we're going to implement a full digital twin AI. It's
Yeah.
baby steps just to build build comfort, and also so all stakeholders in the project are there's enough technology to help the project, but not so much that you get bogged down in the technology and don't actually get the goal of the project accomplished.
Yeah. Know your audience, right? Drew, you were going to say something?
No, he pretty well hit it.
Okay, good. Again, these are, I know, fairly consistent messages. Do we have time for a poll, Stephanie? You got a poll here on the next slide, and then we're almost done. We do, I guess. We'll give 30 seconds to this one. Okay, let's cut that one short. Excellent. Very good responses. Mike Pianka, I think you had a comment we talked about earlier about reliable 80/20 outcome with good uses for AI. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So AI, it's everywhere now, obviously, and a lot of use cases I think are remain to be seen. There's certainly it can be thrown at a lot of things, but I feel like where most agencies will find the most value, and particularly on projects, is use cases that have these 80/20 rule. So it's really, it's not going to be perfect. So kind of picking use cases where the AI can get the work product 80% there, and then rely on 20% of human input for review and quality control. So, for example, as you show here, the traffic sign inventory was a good use case for that,
Hmm.
where the AI could detect the signs, and then we could rely on people to QC that, and also make register the condition of the signs. That'd be a bit hard for the AI to do accurately since it's a bit subjective sometimes.
Yeah, I'm really interested in all of your opinions on that, on this next one, this assisted reporting, and where that fits into workflows, because that's what I see. That's what I predict, right? That, daily reports are going to have so much data coming into it from so many different sources that, yes, will need to be validated before accepted and included. But do you think this is going to be one area that's going to be, is it already happening in your world, or is it something you guys are excited about?
I think it's something that'll be coming, but yeah, a lot of our work in the engineering and construction world focuses on the static infrastructure, what's there, regardless of change. But I do think if we are collecting more imagery on sites, that there's a lot of ephemeral information, like amount of personnel on sites, amount of vehicle on sites, where the vehicles were at that time of day, that using AI and computer vision could really probably capture pretty effectively. That might be hard for people to describe if people are only there for brief periods of time, but the imagery is being captured on site all day long.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a great point. I mean, so now, right, we're talking about connected data next as AI becomes more embedded. We're going to talk about assisted reporting, and then really that predictive and prescriptive, the analytics and insights impacting the model-based delivery, which is also where it's driving. I think these are all the topics that we kind of touched on today. So last slide is Q&A. I don't know how you want to do this, Stephanie, because we're over time. I know I saw you put a little note. Skipping Q&A. Okay, great. So she put a link in there in the chat for anybody that wants to ask questions. I promise we will get to the panel and have them answer your questions. We have another great webinar coming up talking about AI. We are investing pretty heavily ourselves, and it's going to be embedded throughout our own applications, but also obviously part of some of the conversations we have with our clients and our partners, and where we all go forward from here. So, yep, it's in 2 weeks. And if you guys would like to join, there's a QR code. Please register. And unless you guys have any final comments, I just want to thank you, one and all. Great insight, great multiple conversations we had kind of building up to this. I appreciate you sharing your intelligence and your experiences with us. And uh, many thanks.
Thank you, Ron.
Yep, thank you,
Thank you.
Ron.
Great. Take care.